Unit 3, Day 3 notes. Today we're going to talk about parallel lines and transversals. The first question says, why are angle 2 and angle 5 congruent? Let's trace angle 5 first. On our patty paper. Now watch what happens when I rotate my patty paper. You'll notice that the line I just highlighted pretty much fits exactly where 2 is. So that's one reason it's congruent. They've simply just fit inside one another. The actual reason that they are congruent, or the technical reason that we're trying to get you to really recognize, is the fact that they are vertical angles. Again, vertical angles are those bow tie angles, only sharing that vertex and forming an X together. So they are vertical. Question 2. What does angle 1 and angle 5 add up to? Well, angle 1 and angle 5 are adjacent, and together they form a line. So that means they are supplementary. In other words, they will add up to 180 degrees. Number 3, list 4 congruent angles. Well, keeping in consistency with angle 5 and angle 2 right now, let's say I take my patty paper and slide it downwards. Let's see if there are any other angles that match up with angle 2. Angle 4 sure does. So that means I can say angle 2 is congruent to angle 4. I could also now say angle 4 is congruent with angle 5. And again, angle 4 and angle 7 are bow tie. So I could also say angle 4 is congruent to angle 7. And I could also do angle 5 is congruent to angle 7. Again, if I were to move my patty paper back up to the top, where we started, 5 and 7 are in the same position. It also wants us to list 4 more congruent angles. Well, let's get my pen out. And, well, I don't need my pen. Do you see other vertical pairs? Yes, 1 and 6. So 1 is congruent to angle 6. So that means angle 3 is congruent to angle 8. But look at 1. It's in the top left corner of my patty paper right now. And if I were to shift the patty paper down, angle 3 matches up perfectly where angle 1 was. So that means angle 1 and angle 3 are congruent. And thus angle 1 is congruent to angle 8 as well. And then there are a lot more that we could say as well. Now we're going to practice giving you several different angle pairs, and we're going to have to judge whether or not they are congruent or supplementary. One trick is to shade all the acute angles on the picture. And then if both angles are shaded the same, they will be congruent. If both angles are different, they are supplementary. Now this rule will only work if the lines are parallel. It doesn't indicate on here, but these lines will be parallel in all of the pictures we're about to show. And in the future, you would expect parallel lines to have an arrow or two on the line, and that arrow is to represent that the lines are parallel. So again, the rules that we're about to demonstrate only apply if they are parallel lines. So you can use the shade method as one way of identifying parallel lines or congruent or supplementary angles. Another way is to use the zigzag method. And I'm about to demonstrate the zigzag method. Start from any corner on the top left or the top right, doesn't matter. And this is how it works. So I'm starting on the top left because it's not shaded. So if I were to zig to the bottom, across, zigzag, zig, it's supposed to form a Z. So that's the zigzag method. And any angle on that path will be congruent. So all the non-red angles right now are congruent. And if I were to start with the red angles and trace it from the top, starting from the top right, zig, zag, zig. Again, they are all on that path, so that's another reason why they are congruent. So you could choose either one. You could color all the acute, and then if they're the same, they're congruent. If they're different, they're supplementary. Or use the zigzag. Either method is fine. I'll demonstrate both for the future problems. Alright, in this first problem, are angle 1 and angle 2 congruent or supplementary? Well, from first glance, they're both not shaded red. So since they're both not shaded, that means that they are congruent. Alright, if I were to apply the zigzag method, starting at 1, I zig, I zag, I zig. Notice 1 and 2 are on that same path. So that's another way to demonstrate that they are congruent. Go back to yesterday's lesson. What is the angle relationship between 1 and 2? They're both exterior angles and they're on alternate sides of the transversal. So that means they are alternate exterior angles. So what you have just witnessed is that if the lines are parallel, alternate exterior angles will be congruent. Alright, on this example, 1 and 2 are both shaded red, so that means that they are congruent. Again, if I were to use the zigzag method, start at 1, zig, zag, zig. They are on the same path, so they're congruent. So what is the angle relationship between 1 and 2 this time? One is exterior, the other one is interior. However, they're both on the right and above the line. So that means they are corresponding. So now you know that corresponding angles are congruent. On C, angle 1 and angle 2 are shaded differently. So that means they are supplementary. If I use the zigzag, start at 1, zig, zag, zig, they're not on the same path. And they're both exterior angles. However, we didn't talk about same side exterior. So we would just have to say no relationship at this time. All right, for D, they are shaded differently. So that means they're supplementary. And they are both adjacent, forming a line. So that means they are a linear pair. Again, if I were to use the zigzag, they're not on the same path. I'll do one more with you, and the rest you will do on your own. In E, 1 and 2 are both not shaded, so that means they are congruent. If I zigzag, zig, zag, zig, they're on the same trail. And these do have a relationship from the previous day. They are both interior on opposite sides, so alternate interior. So far what we have found out is that alternate exterior will be congruent, alternate interior will be congruent, corresponding will be congruent, vertical are congruent, and linear pair is supplementary. There's one more out there we haven't talked about yet, but you should be able to figure out whether or not it is congruent or supplementary on your own. So finish the rest that I did not do, as I'm going to skip ahead. All right, so we're going to start adding a few algebraic expressions to our angle measurements. But at the end of the day, you still need to establish first and foremost if they're congruent or if they're supplementary. That way you'll know if you're going to set up your equation by equaling them to each other or angle plus angle is 180. So those are your options. Angle equals angle or angle plus angle equals 180. So let's see. On example 2, let's use the zigzag since we don't have shading right now. So starting from the top right corner, I would zig to 147, zag to x, zig. So notice they're on the same trail. So that means they are congruent. So since they are congruent, we'll use angle equals angle, which means 147 is equal to x. Before I go further, what is the relationship between those two angles? They're both interior and on alternate sides, so alternate interior. I'll let you do example 3 on your own. Example 4. Let's zig and zag. Start at 14. Come across, go down, go back up. So they're not on the same path. So that means they are supplementary. So that on this situation, we're going to do angle plus angle equals 180. So that means 14 plus x equals 180. So to find x, subtract 14 from 180. So x would be 166. All right. Do these have an angle relationship that we've talked about in the past? One is interior, one is exterior. However, they're on different sides, so we didn't talk about that. So there is no relationship that we know of at this time. Do example 5 on your own. On example 6 here, they give us the angle measure of 42 degrees in the top corner on the left. The first thing I would do is apply my zigzag and find all the congruent matches. So zig, zag, zig. So that means this angle, and this angle are all 42 degrees. Now, I know that BGA and BGC are a linear pair. So they should add together to equal 180 degrees. So simply take 42 from 180 and you'll find out BGC. So that would give us 138 here. And you can start your zigzag from this one to figure out the angle matches to this. So zig, zag, zig. All right, and now that you have all the measurements for every angle in the picture, answer the questions. So A says find the measure of angle BGC. Well, we just did that. That was 138 degrees. B says find the measure of DHE. So let's trace that angle. DHE. So it's this angle here. It's red, and all the red angles are 42 degrees. So it's also nice to have two different colors when you're doing this or practicing these types of questions, if you have them available. And just finish answering the rest of the questions on your own. I'm confident you'll do just fine. For number 7, in the diagram shown below, assume that AC, whenever you see these double bars here, that means parallel. So we're saying that AC is parallel to FD. So I'm going to draw the little parallel arrows on my lines. Solve for X. So X is inside the angle measure. So we need to figure out if they are congruent or supplementary. So let's zig and zag. Zig, zag, zig. So they're on the same trail. That means angle equals angle. So that means, and they're also alternate exterior, if that didn't remind you that they were congruent. So now I could say 4x plus 3 equals 6x minus 15. Now I can solve for x. First, subtract 4x from both sides. You would have 3 equals 2x minus 15. Then add 15 to both sides. So you have 18 equals 2x. Then divide both sides by 2. So you have 9 equals x. And you're done. On this example, again, AC is parallel to FD. So let's draw our parallel arrows. It wants us to solve for x. So let's apply our zigzag. Zig, zag, zig. They're not on the same path. So that means we're going to use angle plus angle equals 180 degrees. And this doesn't have a relationship that we know of at this time. So let's just simply take 4x plus 3 plus 10x minus 5 equal to 180. So now you need to finish the equation to solve for x. After you have x, make sure you answer the questions below. Find the measure of BGA, so you're going to have to substitute x into that. and then find the measure of BGC. This concludes your notes for today. Don't forget to take a picture and submit.